Expansion guru, realignment guru, the everything guru, Immaculate, joining Locked On Big 12 today. Florida State has called on the Supreme Court in North Carolina now to help in this case against the ACC. Immaculate, I don't even know if we should dive so deep into exactly the lawsuit side of things and more so the activity from Florida State. Does it feel like with ESPN's decision coming in February of 2025 to extend its contract in the ACC, Florida State is trying to work even faster right now than expected?
I think they're trying to keep up. They had a little bit of a setback in the Florida court. So, the appeal going to the Supreme Court in North Carolina maybe puts a little more time on that situation, because really it kind of looks like a race. I still think in the end that all gets settled in a settlement, but for some reason, like the coinciding races in courts, think of it as positioning or leverage at the settlement table, which I'm not saying they're sitting at, but just kind of in a general sense. The North Carolina Supreme Court did place that case with that court and that judge in particular. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know if that means that then allows them to just immediately appeal to the Supreme Court like they've done. Also, I do believe the Supreme Court could probably then decide to place that elsewhere. But that seems to possibly be the reason why they're then able to appeal directly to the Supreme Court on those, which were basically just judgments on motions. Like, it's not even getting into the main hearing yet.
Am I reading into, you and I have talked a bit off the air as well, that if any of this from settlements to NLRB to Florida State and the ACC, if anything gets to Congress, then we're truly talking how you, as a congressional representative who went to the University of Texas for law school and now represents the state of Texas, you want to be in good graces with Longhorn fans who are voters in the state of Texas. Knowing that there are North Carolina law grads who are a part of that Supreme Court in the state, at what point do we start really looking at collegiate allegiance for personal humans in these conversations?
Oof, that's a tough one, because, when you're talking about such a publicly visible case that everyone's paying attention to, I would like to think those folks would be very careful about allowing their personal biases into this. And these are professionals. They've been doing this. So it does, just because they're from a school, it doesn't necessarily mean they're just going to come in and, rule for them. Right. But they might look for little subtle ways to help. I think we've seen that down in Florida, where he basically told them what to put in their complaint that they just refiled. So we'll see how that plays out. I don't know how blatantly they'll be for that, because remember, there's also going to be Wake Forest folks on there, or maybe Duke folks, or North Carolina State folks, or folks from out of state. We don't know. I've seen some of the names that are on there. It's interesting, but I don't want to ascribe anything to those folks. I mean, until we see differently, I would assume that they're going to be professional about this, because there's going to be a spotlight on them on this.
You'd be a great politician. That was a very down the line answer to not put anything on any folks. And I think for now, at least, until we see examples of, and we saw it in Florida, as you mentioned, but until we see examples in North Carolina of allegiance to these schools, there can be no blame to place. The price tag, though, with Florida State and Clemson and their attempt to exit, I think, to me, and there was a guest on the show last week who said, North Carolina truly is that last domino for the ACC. If they're the ones that decide, hey, we're going to tag team along with Florida State Clemson, we're going to exit, the ACC collapses. Do you think there is that domino that is the true downfall of the conference?
I don't think there's enough spaces everywhere for the conference to have a downfall per se.
Yeah.
I would say it's going to be seriously affected. Now, one thing we maybe haven't taken into account on our what could the price be on exit, we just found out today that the ACC is actually on the hook for more in the settlement than the SEC. So if you're the ACC and you know this, they've known this for a while, they're probably wanting to figure out what's the cost that's going to be involved before you let your biggest draft horses out the door. Because it's kind of being a problem right now for the PAC, because all the schools that just left are actually going to have to be part of the PAC in terms of that, the situation and their payouts. So it's probably just a lot easier to have everyone still be part of the conference when this gets figured out. So I think whatever they're on the hook for, that's also going to be a part of this cost in the end. So that could help out a lot once we have that number.
Do you, and it might be too tough to tell even today, I don't have a guess, so I'm putting you in kind of a corner here. Do you feel as though Florida State and Clemson have momentum to keep that settlement number low and low enough for other schools who want to exit to be able to do the same?
Man, want to ask me that one the next time after we seal this.
Right.
There's points to be made on that from both sides.
Yeah.
Good points. So there's a spectrum for the answer. I mean, it could be that they win this thing, they get out. You know, if they get a ruling, the scare is that if they get a ruling in their favor, it doesn't change what the exit fee is, or it doesn't change what the value is. The ruling would be that it's unenforceable, and that means nothing.
Yep.
So, you know, it's going to come down to a negotiation and a settlement, all things involved. I do think that they're probably prepared to make a significant payout in order to get out. But if it really depends upon what the ACC needs to be afterwards.
I'll keep you there too, because it almost seems like there's that, and I think you again mentioned off the air the phrase buying time. Maybe that's the best way to conceptualize it. Why buy time, and are they buying time?
That's what I think. To me, it doesn't. This doesn't go anywhere other than a settlement. But if you don't know entirely what the future is going to be, it's kind of hard to determine. You know, first off, who's going to go, who's going to stay, how much do we charge? Certain schools are not going to be able to pay as much to leave. Right. But if you're trying to redesign the ACC to survive in this future, you might need some more schools to leave than people tend to think you need to keep them all. But if it's going to become a different kind of league, you might need some to leave. So I think that they're buying time for this settlement. They're buying time for the NLRB cases. They need answers. And when they get those, we might see movement. But until then, I think they're basically just paying lawyers to give them more time. Yep.
Is there any way then, I'll leave you here, in the next 2 weeks, we get more clarity on where that conference future is?
I think there's a good chance. I think, you know, we need to know the settlements. We need to know if Congress is acting. We need to know the NLRB case situations. And once we have those answers, it's going to be a lot easier to answer that question in terms of what's going on with the ACC.
I love it. I love that today, Wednesday, May 22nd, we can take the buying time conversation, the almost, I don't want to say nothing burger, but it does feel like there's been this leeway. Florida State's had more action than Clemson in the last month, at the very least, to me. But it isn't this tangible action of, oh, now we know they're really trying to move. In 2 weeks' time, this same conversation looks very different, and that I'm excited about when we have that conversation. And in the interim, how can folks find your opinions and your takes, Immaculate?
Well, currently, they'll find me on X, as you said, Immaculate View, discussing all the situations as it's unfolding, perspective on some of the accounts and reportings as we get them. So right now, that's where I'm at. And to find me, feel free to take a look for me there. See if maybe you like it, maybe you don't. If you do, feel free, please like what you like. And if you like a lot of it, go ahead and give me a follow and join in the conversation.
Brian, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Absolutely. Love it.
That's Immaculate, at Immaculate View on Twitter. I really don't believe there's somebody who has a more concise collection of news on these topics than that guy right there. This has been and always will be. Come back tomorrow for even more Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.